Hi, welcome to 5 Minute Monday. So the theme of this week is guilt. I know this feeling. I would say that I have this feeling once a day, probably. And what's it all about? So as a life coach, I know that this feeling is based on an experience, something that happened which generated guilt. So I know that I don't want to get rid of it, because if I get rid of it, what I'm doing is saying to myself that there's a part of myself that I don't want. There's a part of the history of myself. There's a part of something that made me who I am today that I don't want, which is not a great message to be sending to yourself every day, always wishing that that part of you was gone. So what do we do instead? If we can't get rid of this feeling that is called guilt, I haven't yet met someone who's like, oh God, yeah, I totally love feeling guilty. I try to feel guilty as much as possible. It really motivates me. So how do we get rid of this feeling that doesn't appear to be serving us? So the first thing that we do is we think about that experience. We may not know what it is yet, and there may be more than one. So we think about the source of this guilt and we imagine it as a pot of gold. And I'll come back to that in a moment to explain why we imagine it like that. So for me, now that I'm tiptoeing around the feeling of guilt and I'm talking about it, there's a memory that comes up to me. And in the memory, I am quite young. I'm about 9 or 10, and I'm at school and I'm with my best friend. And on this particular day, I don't want to hang out with her. I just don't feel it. So I run off the playground, I run across the cricket pitch, and I go past the horse chestnut trees and I find a bush and I crawl under it. So she must have followed me, because there she is looking at me under the bush and she's saying, "What are you doing?" And I look at her and I'm like, sleeping? So in this whole experience, I know that she knows something a bit weird is going on, because A, I'm not sleeping, it's playtime, and B, I've never done anything like this with her before. So in this moment, all of this awkward, uncomfortable emotion is generated, which then gets a label, guilt. And it's there and it's inside me, all of the perceptions, all of the understandings that I have of that moment. So each day when this rush of guilt comes to me, my brain is looking around trying to explain it. So what happens is a past feeling gets a current, present explanation. And as soon as you do that, you make it real. You stop from the explanation that this feeling is no longer there, it no longer exists in the moment, to latching it onto something. So it may be that I'm doing the washing up and I suddenly feel this feeling surfacing and I think, oh gosh, I'm feeling really guilty. And then I take a glance at my dog who's lying very peacefully in the sun and I think, oh, maybe I'm feeling guilty about my dog. Oh, maybe I should walk him. And so suddenly that feeling becomes real. But the fact is my dog is totally chilling out, and who says that he wants to go for a walk? The guilt is contained in the past. So that's why I call it the pot of gold. Because if we go back and we mine that experience with a lens that says, I'm looking for gold here, we find it. So let me go back. I'm under that bush and I'm looking at this experience saying there is true gold to be found in this moment. So what I see is my best friend, the coolest girl that I knew at school, who I absolutely loved hanging out with. So I don't need to feel guilty because I know that she's a completely ace person. Okay, so that's cleared up that one. Then I look at me and I think, oh, okay, there's a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling there, because why did I go and hide under that bush? But I remind myself there's a pot of gold here. So I think, okay, if I'm looking through this situation through the eyes of gold, what do I see? I see beautiful information about myself, that there are some days, maybe some weeks, maybe just some hours, where I just really like to be on my own. And suddenly that's a really beautiful feeling. It's like, oh, what a great piece of information. So here's the gold. I love people. I love my friends. I think they're totally cool. I also love being on my own. So now as an adult, not as a 9-year-old who doesn't really know how to deal with that conflict, I love my friend, but I want to be on my own. As an adult, I can say, I love my friends, I love the people I know, but I also love being on my own. So I can let them know this without having to run across a cricket pitch, behind some trees, and hide under a bush and pretend to be asleep. I can just say, hey guys, you know how much I love you, but you also know how much I love being on my own. So you're probably not going to hear from me for a few days. And the guilt has been transmuted into a beautiful knowledge of myself and a way of being able to deal with a situation when I feel that discomfort coming. So just a little tip, a little practice to help you the next time you're feeling guilt, track it back and remind yourself there's going to be a pot of gold at the source of this story. So there you go, a pot of gold for your Monday, a pot of gold for your week, and I look forward to sharing my experiences with you next Monday.